What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 47 of the Yard Podcast. I'm your host, Randy.
And I'm your host, Conan.
And as always, we have our producer, Ray, with us. We kind of got a bit to go over today. Of course, we know who our opening day starter is. Not really a surprise for anyone there. Good old Kershaw. So we'll go over that in a little bit. We want to look at some players who we think will have standout seasons this year, as well as just a couple other things that's going on around the league. So first things first, we've got a 1:05 p.m. game today against the Brewers. Great news. Bellinger's back in the lineup for the first time since having shoulder surgery. So I'm excited to see him out there, get some work in. Kershaw gets the start today, and Trevor Bauer will be piggybacking him, and both pitchers are expected to go 3 to 4 innings today. So that's kind of nice. Should be a pretty decent outing, at least on the pitching side of things.
I mean, when you look at the lineup today, resembles what we should see on opening day, minus Beatty in left field, of course.
Yeah. So it's looking pretty good.
It's exciting to see Belly back, and I'm hoping he can find a rhythm before the season starts. Although, then again, I guess it really doesn't matter if he finds a rhythm at the beginning of the season, because it's at the end of the season what really counts. So, still, it's nice to see him back in there and finally getting back to playing.
Yeah. Great news there. Excited to see him out there. He's obviously not looked great in his backfield games, which makes a ton of sense. He's working on timing. So we've seen a lot of strikeouts. Not surprised at all by that. So I'm okay with it. I just want to see him.
Of that?
No, just what we've seen people say, like reporters that were there all said it. You said to struck him out a couple times, but I fully expect that to kind of be how things are as he's working on his timing, getting back in there, getting a groove. Everyone else has kind of had a head start. So it'll be nice to see him out there. I think they said he'd be DH tomorrow, so they're probably not trying to stretch it too much with his arm. Other injury updates. Good news. Joe Kelly finally threw off. He threw 25 pitches off the mound yesterday. They expect him to do it again in a few days before possibly facing hitters. We're getting closer to opening day, so who knows what's going to happen there. They haven't really told us much besides when he's throwing.
Take your time, Kelly.
I don't
make sure you're 100%.
Yeah, there's no rush. We've got more than enough depth. Speaking of that depth, there's still no new update on Mitch White. So hopefully he's all right. He actually fell. We're going to talk a little bit later, the prospect rankings. We won't talk about him, but he actually fell quite a few spots in the prospect rankings for 2021 because of his inconsistencies and injuries. So hopefully he is good to go, because anytime you have a top prospect who keeps getting hurt, it's not really what you want. But hey, talking about top prospects, we finally got to see Keibert Ruiz in a game. He came in last week in his first at bat of spring. He doubled to right field and drove home 2 runs. Came into the game defensively for only an inning or two before the game was called early in the 7th due to rain. You have already pointed out to me that you love watching him behind the plate. His receiving skills are just fantastic. So it's nice to see him back there and hopefully get more work in.
Yeah, well, he had 2 hits? He only had 2 at bats. He's got 2 hits. And like I texted you, I really do like the way he receives pitches. He receives it like so softly, like there's barely any movement. When he catches it, like when he's framing, it's like real subtle. It just seems kind of natural. Like with Barnes and Smith, you can kind of see them snap the glove into the zones, and whereas Smith, it just looks like it just glides to where he wants it to be. It's quite pleasing to watch, actually.
Yeah, Ruiz is always been known as being defensively there. I kind of feel like it's his bat. Plus, of course, the injuries in 2019 when he broke his finger, that kind of held him back. So I am excited for that. I
did want to ask, since Ray was a catcher, I did want to ask what he thinks of Ruiz receiving back there.
I honestly haven't gotten too much time to look at him, but from what I've seen, it looks good.
Yeah, he's pretty good back there. I know that's always what the scouts have always kind of been a big fan of. So don't think there'll be too much competition with him, at least to start the season. Rosters have already been cut, which we will talk about a little bit later. So we will see what happens there, though. But when it comes to position battles, the one that kind of is sticking out to me a ton right now is that starting rotation. As we know, they've already talked about Price potentially going into the bullpen. We don't really have a locked up rotation. We just have a locked up starting 3, I would say right now, between Kershaw, Buehler, and Bauer. Seems like the rest of the guys are battling for that rotation spot. And I've got to be honest, Price, Nelson, and Gonzalez have all been a ton of fun to watch. Which ironically, those might be the 3 best options coming out of the bullpen, depending on who you ask. But I'm having a lot of fun watching Nelson pitch. It's getting to the point where I don't know how you argue to keep him off of the roster. Maybe not a rotation spot, but keeping him off the roster seems very unlikely. Price has been fantastic. Gonzalez is just like out there doing his thing, like basically untouchable for, I want to say like 7-8 innings now. He's only given up 1 hit, I believe it was. So where are we at with this when it comes to rotation? Because it seems like the Dodgers are going to have a lot of work to figure out.
So yesterday, telecast, Never and Monday, like they were making it seem like it's setting up to be Urias and May in the back of the rotation. So like when they were going over upcoming pitchers, they had said like Kershaw starts tomorrow, Bauer will piggyback, then it'd be Buehler, then it'd be Rios, and then probably May. So the only uncertain one was May, but it kind of seems like that's just kind of where it's going to go for now. Like you mentioned, I've also been really impressed with Jimmy Nelson. The curveball has been very, very nice from him. Actually, one thing I've noticed is everyone's curveball seems to be doing well so far. I think it's been the best pitch of spring. Bauer's curveball has been nasty. Buehler's been nasty. May's thrown some good curveballs. Urias, Knebel, and Nelson have all thrown really, really nice curveballs. Even Jansen a few times has thrown nice curveballs. So I think the curve has, I don't know if it's been a point of like focus for pitchers, but it's been the one pitch that's been consistent for all of them.
Yeah. I also kind of wonder, because we're coming off a shortened season, Roberts keeps talking about not wanting to do a 6-man rotation because they don't really want to throw the guys off their 5-day rest, their normal rest, which I completely get. But then it makes me think of days like today where they're piggybacking. Obviously, Kershaw and Bauer are not going to piggyback in the regular season, but it makes me wonder with someone maybe like May and Nelson or May and Price do some piggybacking, because I just think May's, what I'm constantly getting from him, his biggest issue is figuring out his command, because his pitch count is just too high in every situation, every scenario, every game. He just always has 1 or 2 innings that just absolutely destroy his pitch count. He has to throw like 25, 30 pitches. And he's never been a guy that gets deep. Obviously, he's still very young. I will not give up on him. I know there's still time, but coming out of a shortened season, I'm wondering if it makes sense to try and piggyback and go, okay, May, go out there, give us your best 50 to 70 pitches. And then we're going to bring in Nelson until they actually have the time to work up their arm strength to be able to go out and do this for 162 games. And when you have that much depth, there's no reason to really push guys like May or Urias to go out there and push their arms when we don't necessarily know what we're going to be getting from them.
I think piggybacking especially for May, I think makes a lot of sense. I think Urias will be fine. He does need to build up some arm strength, but he started last year, so I think he should be okay. But for May, yeah, he struggles with his command a little bit. But the one thing you had mentioned Gonzalez earlier, and I mean he's pitched well. There's no doubt about that. My only thing is he's done it so quickly. I'm not sure how his pitches are actually coming along. Like I don't know where his stuff is really at. Like he'll throw like a fastball and it'll be a pop-up. Great. But that's not going to happen every single time. So when you have to start actually making more pitches, how are your pitches going to look then is what I'm really concerned about. So like with May and Urias and everyone else, I've seen them kind of have to struggle through some things and then figure it out. With Gonzalez, there's been no struggle. There's nothing to figure out. His pitches are done within 10 pitches sometimes. So I want to see how he looks when he has to pitch more than 10 to 12 pitches an inning.
I mean, I would like to see Gonzalez get a start. We keep seeing him come out of the bullpen. We've seen May, I think 2 starts. Urias is at about 3. Nelson
May has 1 start. He came in for Bauer the second time.
Oh,
first time.
Right. I mean. Yeah, that's right. So I'd like to see Gonzalez get starting. I don't know if they're going to go down that path. He seems to be
he's fine in the bullpen, I think.
He seems to be the kind of, I want to say like I can't even find the word right now, but he just seems to be the most unlucky one there. He's one of those guys that he's a little bit older than like May and Urias. The depth, it took him a little bit longer to get where he's at in his career. So he's one of those guys that is very good, but you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. At the end of the day, you could take any two of these guys out of this list of 5 that we just gave between May, Nelson, Urias, Price, and Gonsolin, and I'm fine with either of them, but no matter who's in the rotation, because if anything, what's great is the Dodgers can just swap them out. It's easy.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, piggybacking would be a good idea. Like if Urias starts the 4th game, he goes 3.5 innings or something, and then Nelson can pitch 2. And then the next game, May will go 3, and then either Price or Gonsolin could piggyback off of that. I think I like that idea, especially to start the season out. I think that makes a ton of sense for those people. But I don't know. I just, like you mentioned, Gonsolin's a little older. I don't know if he really has a spot in this rotation. Like, he's good, and I kind of want to give him a chance, but I don't think he's going to get that chance here. I think he's more suited for the bullpen here. So I don't think they should trade him, because this year we kind of need that depth. But like next year, if they were to trade him to somewhere where he could start, I wouldn't be upset at that either.
Yeah, and that actually, you kind of just segued me into our next segment. So I'm going to actually take this, and I'm going to start with a little bit different just because we can feed off of it. This one might be a little bit surprising, but basically we wanted to see if we could find 5 players, not necessarily 5, but if we could pick a couple Dodgers that we expect to have standout seasons this year. Whether you want to consider it a breakout or just, we're not expecting things from guys like Betts, Seager, Bellinger, Kershaw, like those guys, they're there. They've done their thing. They've made the names for themselves. Looking at some of the younger guys, and I said you segued me because one of the guys, he's not number 1 on my list, but one of the guys on my list was Gonsolin. And one of my things for Gonsolin was, I think what's going to happen this year is Gonsolin is going to have a very good season. I think he is going to not get that starting rotation spot, even though I think right now on most teams, he probably deserves it. I think he's going to have a good year. And you mentioned not trading him this year. I have a feeling that this is going to be a year that if he goes out and does his thing, it might be a good time to kind of figure out where his trade value is at. Because if they're not giving him a spot in the rotation and he's as good as he is, there's a lot of value behind a starting pitcher. Kind of young, but plenty of control. Even if you don't like where he's at age-wise, he's still got a ton of control, and he's still young enough that a team may want to pick him up. I think he's 27. So that's still young enough where a team could want to trade, make some type of move, whether it's for some type of bullpen arm, something down the line. We keep hearing about guys like Josh Hader, not necessarily for the Dodgers, but just bullpen arms you could think about. So he's one of my guys. I expect a big season from Gonsolin. I don't expect him to necessarily have a rotation spot, but I think he's going to succeed in kind of any situation he comes into this year, whether that's the bullpen or does spot start. I think we will see him spot start at time. I think injuries are inevitable coming off of last year. We saw how many pitchers and players got hurt last year alone. Just wait until we throw him into 162 this year, especially if we start doing double headers because of COVID and that whole mess. So
I think he's going to fill that like Ross Stripling role, and I think he's going to do it very well.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. That's where I'm going with him this year. Is I think he's going to fill that role, but I think he's going to do a damn good job at it, and he's really going to make the Dodgers decide: do I have a shot at this rotation in 2022? Which is probably still pretty unlikely, just with the talent we have. I would not be surprised if Kershaw comes back. Bauer's going to be here. Buehler's not going anywhere. May, other guy Gray. So I think this is the year where Gonsolin's gonna kind of force them, either give me more playing time or trade me. So I'm excited to see what he does this year because, like you said, he deserves that chance. I just don't know if it happens in LA.
Right. So was he your first person or just somebody?
He wasn't, but he segued nicely. So okay. You can go ahead with your first one.
Yeah. My first person was Victor Gonzalez. He was kind of like the unsung hero in the World Series. He gave 1 run in 4 innings, and he's been really strong so far this spring. I think that void that was left by Ferguson, I think will be solidly filled by Gonzalez this season. He's got all the tools to be not only a shutdown lefty, but a shutdown reliever in general, and I think he's really going to solidify his spot. That he's going to be one of those bullpen pieces long term that help the Dodgers continue their run.
Yeah, I agree. Gonzalez was on my list too, but I'm right there with you, so I'm not really gonna say much on that. I'm excited for him. I think 2020 was like his breakout year, but there wasn't enough innings that I think if he can repeat that this year, he's going to get a lot of looks in the baseball
Yeah, it was
world.
only like what 6 innings, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't. It
He's more
wasn't
innings in the
much.
playoffs than he did
Yeah,
in the regular season.
yeah, he had a ton in the playoffs. He was huge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think he got a lot of attention because he did it on a national scale. So now if he can come out and do it for the Dodgers over 162, however many outings that may be, I think we can really see if this guy's a real deal or not. And I kind of like the way he's going. My number one was an easy one because I can't stop talking about him, but Gavin Lux. I'm all in on Gavin Lux. I'm actually even writing a weekly update on Gavin Lux because I can't stop thinking or talking about Gavin Lux because I'm so intrigued by what he has done. He looks super comfortable at the plate. He discussed how he spent this offseason working on a swing that was simplified and more repeatable in every at bat instead of trying to kind of switch it up. He's shown confidence whenever he's spoken to the media so far. And I think that's a huge thing that a lot of fans kind of bypass is that confidence is almost more important than anything else because the mental kind of strain behind baseball is not talked about enough. And we saw, I think, what that did to Lux. We've talked about it over and over about fans beating up on him on social media. And he looks like he is having so much fun talking to Kirsten out there. He's smiling. They're constantly posting pictures of him just laughing his ass off. And I love it. And his happiness, it translates into success on the field. I think that is fair to say for most players that when they feel good about themselves, that's when they see. These players are there because they are professional athletes. They did not get there by luck. They did not get there by chance. Lux is there because he's worked his ass off to be there. So now if he can just kind of find that within him to be able to mentally deal with the struggles, he has had yips in the past defensively. He has been great on the field. He's picked up 4 hits in his last 2 games. And I'm noticing when he started spring, he was very pull heavy. Over this last week, we've seen him go up the middle more. His first extra base hit was a double to the left center gap. So I like that he's not just pulling the ball a ton. I'm very, very high on Gavin Lux, and that's why I gave him my number 1 because I think he's going to be huge for the team this year.
Yeah, so I actually didn't put him on my list just because, I mean, you know how I am. Also, I figured you probably have him on there anyway, and I was just going to piggyback off what you were saying. So last week I had said I'm curious to see how he handles his first little kind of mini slump, and he was in like a 0 for 5, 0 for 6 type of thing with a ton of strikeouts, and the last 2 games he's bounced back going 4 for 5. Yesterday he had the hardest hit ball in the game, and then in his second at bat, in his first at bat, he hit the ball like 104 miles an hour as well.
That second at bat, which I think you will be happy about. I'm sure you saw it, but it was against a lefty. I don't know if you noticed that. So that made me very happy.
Yeah, it was against a lefty. He hung in there with the curveball and just smoked it right back up the middle. That's kind of like what I like to see. Like in a previous at bat, I forget what game it was. I had mentioned it to you in a text message saying that it was against a lefty. I liked how he tried to go the other way. It worked for Beatty. It didn't work for Lux, but the idea was correct. So I like him going up the middle the other way against the lefty, and then obviously against the right-hander, he can do what he does. Now, I have seen some people saying that it's nice that he's hitting, but where's the power? I do think that's fair, but like you had mentioned, let's remember that he's working on simplifying his setup and swing. So right now, it's just about getting repetition and getting comfortable with it and making sure he's able to repeat his process. I think the power will come in time, but also at the same time, I actually wouldn't be upset if he just focused on being like a Jeff McNeil type of hitter who hits for average and the power shows up every now and then. There's plenty of power on this team with like Muncy, Belly, Seager obviously has somehow turned into, I don't know, Joey Gallo from left-hand side. But except he hits more for average, yes. But like the power has been there. He's turned into Jock Peterson. It's wild. So there's plenty of power on this team. Like Will Smith can also hit for power. So having someone who's just like a contact hitter, get on base, and then use his speed and have like Betts and Seager and Bellinger or whoever drive him in, I think that also works for this team. So I honestly wouldn't be upset if that's the route he took as well.
And before you move on to your next person, really quickly, I think this is something we're going to have to mention a lot. Deadened baseball in 2021. So we might see some hitters try to do more of a line drive approach instead of getting under it until they get a better feel of how the ball is coming off of their bat. And to be honest, I'm 1,000% fine with that approach. I would much rather, if a guy is line driving a ball, he's hitting the ball very well. It does not have to be a home run every time. It doesn't. If he is making solid contact, barreling up the ball and putting it up the middle, let our number 8, 7, 8 guy, whatever he is, probably 7, depending. Well, if Barnes in the game is probably our number 7, maybe 8, because we're not having a DH this year, unfortunately, it looks like. So yeah, I love where Lux is going. I love the improvements we're seeing. I am curious to see who your number, whatever it is, 2, 3, whatever.
2. Honestly, I didn't really put him in order. I kind of just was thinking and then just put players down. So this person's had a really slow start to spring, but I chose Eddie Rios. Again, the spring hasn't really been all that great, but the good news is he hasn't struck out a lot. I think it's only been like once or twice. So that's a really good sign, especially for him. Also, he's shown in limited at-bats that he can straight up hit for power the last 2 years. And I think he's going to be a really big contributor as a spot fill-in starter and a power lefty bat off the bench. His defense has also improved, so that should get him some more playing time. And I think he's going to play a lot more this year. And with that, we'll continue to see that same hard hitting we've seen in the previous 2 years. And I think he's going to have a really good year.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. We kind of discussed him the other day, just over text. He's really not doing much, but I do think cutting down on the strikeouts for him is huge. We saw a big improvement off 2019, where he struck out quite a bit. 2020, it got a little better. So hopefully this year is yet another improvement. You always want to see that, especially from guys like Rios, who he's not old, but he's really not one of the young guys on the team either. So
he's 26.
Yeah. So
he's
not
young,
old,
but it's not Lux or May.
But
he's kind of in that Gonzalez area.
Yeah. So you kind of hope that he has figured something out. I think he'll be. It's always nice to have a big left-handed bat off the bench like that. Would be nice to have a right-handed bat like that, which comes to one of my guys. This one is a little weird for me because we don't actually know if he will see any time, but if he does, I'm feeling really good about what I'm seeing DJ Peters do at the plate. Whether or not he doesn't get called up until rosters expand, or God, who even knows how that works anymore. After 2020, I feel like all the rules have just changed so much that I can't even keep up with it. But we don't have a right-handed power bat off the bench unless Barnes is starting. That's the only time we have a right-handed power bat, because then Smith is on the bench. And this is where I think,
or Taylor starting and Pollock's on the bench.
Yeah, Pollock, kind of. So
he has 16 home runs last year in limited at bats.
Yeah, that's true. As long as he stays healthy, I think. As long as he stays healthy, I think Pollock's much better than I think the 2020 Pollock we see is the 2020 Pollock. Maybe not to that extent, but I would say pretty close to that. And I would like to see a guy kind of like Edwin Rios, but from the right-handed side, and that's where I think DJ Peters comes in. We talk about his swing being the biggest issue, the holes in his swing. And while he hasn't necessarily cut back on strikeouts, tiny bit, last week, they've come up on him a little bit more. He has been drawing walks more than usual, which is huge. That's a big development for a guy with a big hole in his swing. It's super important. If he can cut back on his swings and misses, he could be a huge help to the team off the bench. And
also, I don't feel like he's chasing pitches though. Like he's doing that Muncie thing where he's swinging and missing in the zone.
Yeah, which isn't not ideal.
Not great, yeah.
But I could see him being a guy that gets a chance based off injuries, or if Pollock ends up on the IL, something like that. God forbid. I hope he doesn't. But if Peters gets the chance this year, I just think it might maybe be his time. I don't expect it to be anything long-term. I don't expect him to come up and have like a Bellinger thing where you think, okay, he'll get back sent down in a week, and he doesn't. Like, I don't see any of that. But when this team is as stacked as it is, I kind of think you got to look at the younger guys who might get that opportunity. And I think, it's all going to depend on development. And I feel bad for guys like him who aren't going to have that minor league season right away to keep getting in that consistent work. But I could see him being a taxi squad option and getting a chance in there, if or when there is an injury, which I think there will be plenty this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, so since you mentioned Peters and not knowing if he's going to be up or down, I also picked someone who I'm not sure if they're going to be up or down or not, and that's Garrett Clevenger. I think he will get some looks this year just because, of everything that happened last year. We're in a longer season, so he'll get some time. And I think he's going to showcase why the Dodgers traded for him. I think he's looked really good so far this spring. He's given up 1 earned run in 5 innings of work, but he's also struck out 9. He's showcasing a high hard four-seamer and a really nice curveball. There are some command issues. He's walked 2 and he's actually hit a batter, but I think his stuff has looked really good out there. And I look forward to seeing him kind of solidifying a spot in the pen. And I think he's going to end up taking Alexander's spot in the process.
Which I don't know if I'd be bothered by, because Alexander stresses me out when he is on the mound. Sometimes he does well. Sometimes it's a complete shit show. You don't really know what you're going to get. I am very, very ready to move on from that Scott Alexander trade. So if
it was going to be a really good one when we got him too, because he was good with the Royals.
Yeah.
But he's been injured and inconsistent.
Yeah. I'm just not a fan of the guy. So, I would not mind Clevenger coming in and doing some stuff. He's been a little, if I'm even remember, I think it's him. He's been the one who's struggling a bit on the mound in spring training, right? Or was that, or has he had moments? Maybe it was just one run. Then. Okay, then maybe it's someone else. I don't know.
1 earned run. He's given up, I think, 4 or 5 runs.
Okay, so maybe
errors and things.
That might be it then. It was just like one of those bad, kind of like Urias the other night, when he got no defensive help whatsoever.
Not great.
Hey, my thing is get it out of your system now, because that shit can't be happening during the regular season. So we will see what happens.
But they've always gone through these ups and downs. Like, they'll start the season off playing great defense, and they'll have like this one.
Yeah, they'll have a couple games where it's like
even like a month-long sprint where they really suck at playing defense, and then they get it together again. It's very weird, but I mean,
I guess when you have the offense, it's not the worst thing in the world. I hate defensive errors, because they're just one of those things like you should have been able to do that, where like saying you should have been able to hit a pitch is much more difficult, but like you should have been able to ground that, or you should have been able to field that ground ball. Nothing frustrates me more. So I hope that doesn't keep happening. But I'm not too worried about it. I think they'll be all right. Yeah, we had that ugly play by Seager and Turner the other night. Smith kind of looking lost on the field, which leads me into my next guy. I don't know if this is necessarily like a standout, but I can't make up my mind about him. But I'm going with Julio Urias because of what he did in the playoffs. If even half of that translates over into the regular season, we are going to have a guy that is going to be very, very very, very good. He's at a very odd spring, but I feel good. And his first, it's been weird. In his first outing of spring, he struggled in the first inning, which is exactly what we saw all regular season last year. Drove me insane. Got out of it, whatever. I think he gave up 1 run, whatever it was. In his next outing, he faced the White Sox lineup, and he was great. That's one of the scariest lineups in baseball. They had basically their whole starting whatever in there, and I kept thinking to myself, if there is a game that Urias is going to get lit up in the first inning, you do not want it to happen against the White Sox, because they would have ran all over him. And he had not one issue with that lineup. And then we go and see what happens.
It wasn't his fault, to be honest.
No, it wasn't. But then we go and see
that was 0 runs.
Yeah, then we go and see that mess that happens against the Royals the other night. And that was super weird, because teams you can't roll over innings in spring training anymore, which was a thing for the first 2 weeks. However, they've got this very weird rule now, which is like every other sport, because you can do it in football, baseball, hockey, soccer, can't do it in baseball. You're actually allowed to remove your pitcher during the inning due to pitch count, and then bring him back in a following inning, which is exactly what they did. Urias should have been out of that first inning against the Royals, but man, that defense was a mess. Between Seager not being able to field ground balls, Turner throwing a ball away, like I said, Smith just standing at home plate with the ball in his hand, letting the batter run to first. It was a
strikeout. Yeah, the ball bounced right back to him, and he just stood there.
The guy was like halfway to first, and he stood there. No one.
Munch is over there calling for the ball.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. That was all awful in the first inning. So Urias got charged with only 1 run, which is fine, because he gave up a solo shot to Bobby Witt Jr., which like everyone's giving those up to Bobby Witt Jr. That dude is out here like destroying baseballs. So he gave up a home run to him. 5 runs, 1 earned, so definitely not on Urias. His biggest thing, the walks aren't ideal, but in that game, he did have 5 strikeouts over 2.2 1/3 innings. And when your defense is failing you like that, it's great to see Urias be able to kind of stick in there and still get the strikeouts, not let that completely break him. So I am really counting on Urias getting it together in the first inning, which he has been, except for his first outing. I do not blame him for this start against the Royals. He was great against the White Sox. I'm looking forward to it because we have been waiting for him to make his mark as like that top prospect. Obviously, he hasn't been a prospect in years, but the injuries and everything that's happened in his career, if we can get that same fire in that same guy, or even just some of it from October, I think Urias is going to finally have that big season and not just a big postseason.
And even if, let's say, when he started, he hasn't even been bad. He's been good. It just hasn't been what we were expecting when we signed him when he was 16, because he was touted as like this great generational prospect or whatever. So he hasn't been that, but he's been good. Now, even if it doesn't work out in the rotation, shout out to Jonathan. We've seen him do a great job in the bullpen. So I don't think that's the end of the world for Urias if he struggles in the rotation, because I mean, as we've seen, we can just move him to the bullpen, and I think he could shut shit down there.
Yeah, he's a killer out of the bullpen. So that's nice to know that if things don't go well,
So he's
in the
going to be
rotation,
Maeda, basically. He's going to go through the season doing decently well in a rotation, then go to the bullpen and kill it.
You know what? If he is, that's fantastic, because I don't think we ever appreciated what Maeda did for us as
I
much
did.
as we probably should. Well, I'm just saying we as like the general consensus of the fan base. I just don't think we ever appreciated it. That dude was never hurt. He was always in there, and he was fantastic, pissed off out of the bullpen in October. I do think you kind of have to give Urias a shot in the rotation because of everything he's done and all the ups and downs. But like you said, if things don't go as planned, it's great to know that you could put a solid 1, 2, 3 inning guy in the bullpen out of Urias, and his stuff will play out of the bullpen very well. So I didn't have anyone left. I don't know. I think did you have?
Oh, I had 2 more actually. Okay, so I went with Gratterall. I mean, we haven't seen him so far this spring, but he's just like a very likable guy who's easy to root for, someone you can really get behind. There are definitely things he still needs to work on if he wants to be the future closer. But even then, he gets a lot of ground ball outs, and I think that's something that he can really rely on should he get in trouble. At the worst, he'll be a really good reliever in the 7th or 8th innings like he was last year, just because of him being able to get ground balls on that alone. I am looking for him to take the next step this year with his slider and hopefully get a little more spin on his fastball. But I think we're going to see more flashes this year of the Gratterall who could be the future closer.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, we haven't seen him yet, so we will have to see what goes on there. Just so that way you guys know what's going on. He, like Coney said, has yet to throw. Roberts told reporters on Monday he didn't know if Gratterall would be appearing in a game this spring. Not ideal. He said Gratterall faced some hurdles this offseason that made it difficult for him to throw off a mound, but wouldn't specify as to what this meant. Said he wouldn't close the door on Gratterall making the opening day roster. With that said, if Gratterall doesn't make the opening day roster, does open up potential some other bullpen spots for guys. Maybe
for like Santana.
Dennis Santana. Yep, that's exactly where my mind went. So you can go to your last guy now, but since we were on Gratterall, I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. So my last guy was actually Dustin May. I think he's really going to solidify himself this year and show more flashes of being that frontline starter that we know he can be. So far in the spring, it's kind of been like a mixed bag. His breaking he is mixing in his breaking balls and off-speed pitches a little more. Like I mentioned last year, that is something that I was looking for. And I think it's going to be key for him to kind of taking that next step. Once he starts mixing his pitches better, I think we'll see flashes for a longer period of time, and he'll be more consistent with that for sure. So I think this is going to be the year we see that frontline potential from Dustin May. And like you mentioned earlier, I think he will start piggybacking just because I think it's the best thing to do for right now. But by season's end, he's going to be one of those stars where we look like he has an ERA in the mid-2s. He's striking people out, and he's doing a good job of getting out of trouble should he get in it.
Yeah, he's absolutely capable of it. So I'm excited for him. I think, like we've mentioned, his biggest thing will be finding his command and mixing his pitches. It was kind of nice. At Salt River Fields yesterday, they are the only team, it's the Diamondbacks and Colorado. They are the only team in Arizona spring training that has StatCast set up. So it was nice to see a little bit of that info on May yesterday, throwing his curveball, sinker, all that good stuff. I did watch some of that. So I'm excited for his season. I think he has all the potential in the world. And once he gets to where he needs to get, we'll be in very good shape with him. On to the next thing we wanted to discuss. This one won't take nearly as long, but Chris Taylor is in an interesting position, in an interesting situation. Gavin Lux is out here killing it at second base, and Roberts has basically said he's going to be everywhere. He's going to play second, third, left field. Clearly, third won't be that much. Shortstop won't be that much. That's Seager and Turner. It's starting to look like second base may not be that much either. So we were kind of discussing like where Taylor's going to spend a majority of his playing time, because in my opinion, Taylor should be out there playing. He's not necessarily a guy you want on the bench. I think he's a fantastic bench option. But I also think that he's pretty solid at the plate, that I have a hard time trying to decide like if I want him or Pollock, and they're both righties, so you can't really platoon them. I don't want to platoon Lux to start the season, and I hope he doesn't end up in a situation where he has to be platooned. So I have to put Taylor at left field and then maybe second base sometimes to fill in for Lux, and then fill in for Seager and third base. But I just think if you're Taylor, you're in a really weird spot, because you've clearly earned a spot on that team, but you've got a lot of other guys who are coming up and maybe deserve it a little bit more. Like within Gavin Lux, you're not going to sit Gavin Lux so Chris Taylor can play. I see him playing a lot of left field. I don't know where you're at.
Yeah,
But
so at the start of spring, Roberts had said that he's going to spend majority of his time at second base and left field. So like this question kind of came about because a friend texted me. He just said Chris Taylor starting second baseman. So like I get it, he's hit well, but my thing is like all the fans kept saying, or even like people from the team kept saying, all Lux has to do is hit well and have a good spring. Well, he's done that, and yet for quite a few people, it's not enough. So that just seemed kind of odd to me. If anything, Chris Taylor should be the starting left fielder, as Pollock hasn't really shown up or showed anything good as of yet. But Pollock was also bad last year during spring training and then showed up during the season. So I don't know how to really take that. It's definitely an interesting and tough situation for sure. But as of now, Lux should be the starting second baseman. And then Pollock can get his at bats versus lefties. Now you mentioned that you said Lux shouldn't really be platooned, but I think it's going to end up being that against lefties, Pollock plays left, Taylor plays second base. I don't think I would agree with it either, just because I mean we kind of need to see how he does versus lefties, and he hit them pretty well in the minors, and he's done pretty well so far here in spring training. So I mean, I don't know, but I think for right now their plan should be, or to make everyone happy, should be Pollock against lefties in left field and then Taylor at second base. But Lux should be the starting second baseman against righties.
I mean, I don't know why I even just thought about this, but I kind of thought I needed to. But I'm also wondering too if there's any chance. I don't know how they would unless he starts off well, but then if he does, like, you don't want to trade him. But like, I also wonder if Pollock is even going to, how long Pollock is on this team. We've heard about them cutting potentially. We've heard Friedman discuss that the payroll's a little bit high, and of course they'd like to get it down, but it's not a priority, that if they have to play with it, they will. So it does make me think, like, is there any chance that Pollock just ends up on another team?
I don't know, because he has a player option next year, I believe, and I assume he's going to take it. But I don't know. I wouldn't mind if they did trade him, but at the same time, I know he's like there's an injury concerns, but the 2 years he's been here, he's hit really well. We need to be honest about that. He's hit really well since coming here. Losing that bat is gonna kind of hurt. Sure, he swings and misses a lot, but when he makes contact, he's been really good in that area, especially with the power. So I don't know exactly how I feel right now about that, but there's a chance that he could be traded, but then again, what do you do in left field? Is it just Taylor? But how do you platoon Taylor there then? Like, do you
Yeah.
have Beatty up there as well?
Yeah, that I don't know. I guess that is where you can maybe work in some of that. We've talked about all different stuff with this team. I'm not saying this is the idea, but like moving guys around, whether it means Lux to left field, you put Muncy back at second, you put I want Bellinger in center field. The thing is with this team is I feel like there's so many options. We don't know what's going to happen with Zach McKinstry because McKinstry plays some corner outfield.
Yeah.
And then you can run into a true platoon with that because he's a lefty with Taylor being a righty. I don't necessarily think Pollock goes anywhere. I just think it's something when they talk about shedding payroll, he seems like the perfect candidate there, especially if you're not entirely sure what's going to happen. Something I did want to touch on really quickly, though, was Taylor's discipline last year, which, of course, I didn't recognize on my own. I read JP Hoonster's newsletter about him, and he mentioned how only 11 hitters in 2020 were better at taking pitches outside of the strike zone than Taylor. Taylor had a higher walk rate than Mookie and Seager. He made some mechanical adjustments that allowed him. So what he basically said was, he made some mechanical adjustments that allowed him to slow down the ball. And when you can slow down the ball, his plate discipline got even better with that. So his quality of contact could obviously be improved a lot, which would help raise his batting average as well as his slugging. However,
he strikes out a lot though.
He does, but that's what I'm saying, has changed a lot last year. His 2020,
but he struck out a lot last year.
But his 2020 numbers were more identical to his 2017 when he came up, like his strikeout rate when we had that Taylor.
Because he 27%?
No, I don't know. I don't do math. That's like on Baseball Reference, or not Baseball Reference, Fangraphs does the percentage. Look, I'm just telling you what was in this article, and like he had a pretty solid 2020. I mean, the guy had an OPS of 842, which is almost identical to what he did in 2017 when he had an 850. So he had 55 strikeouts, which of course isn't ideal, but he did cut that down. 55 strikeouts in 56 games compared to when he led the league in 2018. He had 155 games and 178 strikeouts. So his strikeouts rates not ideal, still high, but they are headed in a better direction. I would like to see it even better in 2021.
Yeah, it was 26% last year. The average is like 21, so not great, but I mean
2017 was 25%. That's the lowest mark with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
In 2017? Yeah, but I kind of feel like we've accepted at this point that that's how guys, a handful of the guys on this team are. You're going to get some strikeouts with them. I don't know. Taylor's not this big power bat, so I'm not sure why. I am interested to see, though, how 2021 treats him, if he is still working on these mechanical adjustments and if it slowed him down. Because if it has, and he can cut out some of those strikeouts, I think that would be huge for him. That seems to be his biggest issue, are the strikeouts. But moving on, since we are starting to run a little bit shorter on time, you talked about Corey Seager, who is on a different planet right now. And I think as long as we have Mookie Betts on the Dodgers, he's constantly going to be in MVP talks because he's just that damn good. So I'm kind of wondering, is there any chance that Seager has a legitimate shot at challenging Betts for an MVP? Or does Betts just do too much that it almost doesn't even matter what Seager does with his bat? Because the way Seager's swinging his bat, he looks like the postseason Seager, and he hasn't slowed down. It's insane.
Yeah. So if we're being honest, the MVP is mostly just about hitting. So yes, if the MVP actually encompassed everything, then absolutely not. Betts is just by far the better overall player, like not really even that close, just because he really can do everything well. I mean, Freddie Freeman literally just won the MVP because of his offense. He was pretty bad last year defensively, but he won anyway. Betts had the highest WAR last year because he's a better overall player than anybody, but he still didn't win the MVP. And in my biased opinion, he deserved to be the MVP just because he does everything. But again, since it's not about that and it's strictly like an offensive award, yes, Seager can challenge for it and probably win it.
See, and I'd love to see Seager get that chance. It's contract year for him, so It could end up causing the Dodgers to spend some more money if they decide that they want to keep him, which I don't care. Spend all the money in the world. You guys have got it.
It's gonna depend on his health. If he has a year where he's healthy-ish, then they will spend the money. If he has another year where it's up and down with injuries, he won't be here next year. They will go get Arenado if he's available.
Yeah. I don't know about that. This is where you and I don't agree, which is fine, but I don't know about all that. I don't see that happening. I guess
we can put some money on it too.
It also depends. No, I don't care that much.
I'm willing to bet on it.
No, I don't care that much. I don't care about anything that much. I'm just saying, I think that they have made it very clear that they love Seager and that he has kind of done what they've needed him to do. At the end of the day, maybe it's my emotion speaking, but as for the MVP thing, I think it's always difficult when you have the caliber of players of guys like Seager and Betts on the same team, because they're, at the end of the day, they're taking votes from each other. Some people will believe that whether or not the MVP actually accounts for certain things, you do have some voters who will go, okay, Mookie's doing all of this, Seager isn't, but a majority is still probably going to go offense. So
that's just the way it is, because even in the American League, they chose.
I mean, Trout wins it every year, and his defense has never been. But that's
exactly.
the thing.
But
like,
even
he's
just
so
last
good.
year, they gave it to the first baseman Abreu, and LeMahieu was just almost as good on offense and way better on defense. So they really just look at the offensive things.
I kind of got to be honest. I absolutely hate that writers do the voting. I almost would rather it be players, because what means more than your own peers voting for you to win an award? If you just, I think it could be a simple rule, like you're just not allowed to vote for someone on your team. You've got to vote everywhere else. These are the guys that actually know the talent. They know what goes on in the locker room. They know how these guys help, what they're doing.
But actually, if we're being honest, since it is an offensive award, it's going to go to Juan Soto.
Well, yeah, if that's where they're going with it, yeah, but Juan Soto also could have, he could have won it last year. That dude was a monster last year.
But he missed some time though.
Yeah,
he missed the first bit of
he
game,
did.
So that's
but why. I think there's always, that's why voting's complicated, because there really doesn't seem to be a set guideline for anything. It seems like these baseball writers kind of just go with whatever they feel like they want to go. I think it'll be very hard for Mookie or Seager to win an MVP in Dodger blue unless they really go above and beyond because of the whole vote thing. But I would love to see Seager just ball out and have an incredible season. But yeah, I do think at the end of the day, his biggest thing will be his health. So I pray that he stays healthy, because a Betts and Seager 1-2 punch is probably the craziest thing you will see in all of baseball. So we just got to kind of,
but he really is healthy. Just on like, he really just is on like a different planet, because a lot of these balls, it doesn't even seem like he's getting a lot of, and it's just carrying. So, I mean, he's always been big, but like now he feels like he's strong.
I just hope he's not. I just hope they're not using the juiced balls, because if he's doing that with dead and baseballs, like, it's game over for the league. Like he's going to be on top of it. I'd like to see them face some better pitching, but at the end of the day, I think Seager's proved enough in his career that he can hit well, that it doesn't really matter who he's facing, that there's a very good chance this is going to translate over anyways. So I'm excited. He's, like you said, he's on a different planet. He's now tied for the most home runs in spring, which is not something you necessarily
Gallo,
think.
right?
Yeah. Is it Gallo at the? Yeah, it is Gallo at the top. Yeah. Peterson and Gallo. So not what you necessarily expect.
Did you see Gallo against the Dodgers? He was killing Buehler.
Yeah. Gallo's one of those. He's just such an interesting player. The power, but then it's either
he's going to hit 200 and below, but he's going to give you 40 home runs and draw a shit ton of walks. He's very weird. Yes.
Yeah, odd player, but we'll see what Seager gives us this year.
He's also really good defensively too, though.
I hope that's always nice. See, and that makes me wonder too what happens with Seager is that there's so many questions. This offseason is going to be even worse because we have to deal with stuff like that. Seager's going to be a free agent. Kershaw's going to be a free agent. The CBA is going to be that's going to be a disaster on its own.
So if Kershaw wants to come back, he'll be back.
Yeah. If he wants to be back, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% sure on Seager. I have information from a friend I trust, and the Dodgers would rather have other people if Seager isn't healthy. But if Seager's healthy, then obviously it changes a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too could be dependent on the type of season we see from Gavin Lux. If they are confident they can move Gavin Lux to shortstop, eventually teams have to move on from players. And I don't think that's what a lot of Dodger fans want from Seager, but if it happens, I could understand where they're coming
I
from
mean,
if
honestly,
the
I don't want
injuries
it
are a
either. I would
concern.
rather have Seeger over the two names I've heard, which is Arenado and Story. Although I really do like Story, but I'd rather have Seeger as well. But maybe it's just like an emotional connection. But at the same time, it like you mentioned, it's going to depend on Lux and what he does and what type of player he becomes. Is he going to be that 2020 guy that people were saying, or is he just going to take the Jeff McNeil approach and just get singles and then occasional doubles and use his speed, and maybe he's able to play all over the field. So it's definitely going to be an interesting offseason, a lot more stressful than this one. So let's buckle in, guys.
Hey, let's just win another World Series and then we can just cruise right through it and not even have to stress that much. That'd be dope. But yeah, back to this season. We have got our opening day starter, which I don't think anyone is surprised about at all. It will be Kershaw's 9th all-time, and this is a fun little stat from Sarah Langs on Twitter. Kershaw has a 1.05 career ERA on opening day in 8 starts. That's the lowest opening day ERA by any starting pitcher to make more than 5 opening day starts since earned runs became official in both leagues in 1913. So he kills it. Maybe not the best of ideas that we're starting in Colorado. Not what you want if you care about that stuff.
I'm happy for Kershaw, and like you mentioned, his ERA is absolutely ridiculous in opening days. But this is starting in Colorado, and his ERA in Colorado is in the mid-4s in 140 innings. Now, I know their team is not as good, but it's still Colorado, and it's going to be tough because of the conditions. Yeah. So
it's also supposed to be snowing there today. So
great. Yeah. So the Dodgers offense
the LA Kings got postponed yesterday because they couldn't get out of Colorado to get back home in time.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's not great. So, I mean, the Dodgers offense is really going to need to show up that series because the pitchers are going to be overworked and exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I could definitely see them having a couple extra guys like on the roster, more arms, less bench to kind of get through that first series and the first travel. They do have an off day. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
I think
they do have
15 pitchers, 11 positions.
Yeah, I don't think they have a set on it right now where you have to have a certain amount.
No, yeah, they're waiving the
they are waiving
the health safety protocol. Yeah, there's no limit.
Okay.
Like they proposed.
Yeah, so it might be 16-10 for all we know.
Yeah, like they'll probably have it. Someone who Beatty is our extra backup catcher, and then a bunch of arms out there. So we'll see what happens. I'm happy for Kersh. I'm not gonna sit here and do the math because I don't do math. I don't know what that means for the home opener. I'll be 100% honest.
During yesterday's telecast, they were saying that they were talking to Kershaw as either opening day or the opening series at home.
Then I'm glad he chose opening day.
So he could just sit back and enjoy the festivities.
Good. That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I want. He does not need to be out there stressed out, like on the ring ceremony. Like, let that man be in line, give him his ring because he deserves it. So I'm glad he's opening up opening day because that home opener, he deserves to finally have that chance.
I'm curious how the rest of the rotation does feel out though. Like, okay, we know Kershaw's 1, but is Bauer 2 and Buehler 3 to start?
Bowers might be 2 just because Buehler seems slow forever anyways. So
and he started earlier this year.
Yeah, but I have a feeling that rotation's gonna be mixed up so many times it won't even matter. Yeah, but speaking of opening day in LA, fantastic news. It has been announced that LA County has been approved to move into the red tier, which means the Dodgers can now have 11,000 fans at the stadium when the Dodgers return on April 9th for their home opener. I do not have any information for you guys on tickets. Nothing has been released from the team. So unless you want to drop like $9,000 on TickPick or StubHub, good luck with that. If you have the money, I mean, hey, all the power to you. Hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen. Last I heard, there were about 11 to 13,000 season ticket holders. So they may say, screw it. We don't want to deal with anything. Just give it to the season ticket holders. Or they may say, screw it. We're not picking favorites and just let it be a free for all. hopefully by next week we know. It might be a little too late by then selling tickets wise, but April 9th, the home opener against the Washington Nationals, the Dodgers will have fans. So I'm very excited to know that there will be fans there for the ring ceremony. I think that is huge, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'm glad there's going to be fans back. Just everyone stay safe.
Yeah, please stay
have
safe.
fun and enjoy some Dodgers baseball for the first time in over a year.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be so dope to see fans there, not cardboard cutouts. I cannot wait. Hopefully they put like most of them. I mean, you've got to do it safely, but hopefully with 11,000, they can keep them between like field and loge, so you can actually see the fans on TV, not like all up in top deck and reserve and all of that. Because I actually want to see the fans. On Monday, we had 28 roster cuts, which is just part of spring training. I'm not going to pretend to sit here and exactly explain to you what those roster cuts mean, because COVID protocol has made a lot of this even more complicated without like minor league teams and all of that good stuff. But on Monday, the Dodgers optioned Kyber Ruiz, Zach Rex, Luke Raley, Alex Vesia, Gerardo Carrillo, and Andre Jackson, and Edwin Uceta. Those are all guys on the 40-man roster, so they have all been optioned. There are 21 other players who were sent to minor league camps, guys like Bobby Miller, guys that aren't on the 40-man roster who probably have about a 0% chance of opening up on the big league roster. So the major league camp roster now sits at 45, so they do still have some cuts they will have to make, and we will probably see those start coming in the next week. So we are getting much closer to opening day, which means we are getting closer to seeing the guys in the lineup and on the field who have a shot at being on the roster come opening day. So that is exciting. In other news, I don't know if you saw this. This isn't really something we have to discuss because it's kind of dumb depending on how you view it. Bauer got busted by MLB for wearing his own logo during the game. He received a warning letter from MLB last week stating that he was breaking league rules by having his Bauer Adage logo visible on his undershirt and on his belt during the game. The letter stated he violated Section M3, which prohibits players from displaying corporate logos or other identifying marks on equipment, apparel, or outerwear. I don't know which side of this you think is dumb.
It's dumb that they fine him. Who cares?
At the end of the day, though, you can't. No other league would allow you to do that.
I don't care about your boring ass rules.
But you can't do that.
It's his shit.
It doesn't matter. You can't. That's wrong on every. It's free corporate sponsorship.
I don't care. Honestly, I really don't care.
But
they can't maximize.
You do know no other sport allows this, right?
I understand that, because they did the same thing with Michael Jordan, and Nike was like, "Fuck it, I'll pay for it anyway." So shout out to Nike. Good for them. This is stupid. I don't care about your boring ass white rules. This is dumb.
There's nothing to do with that. It's free sponsorship.
You guys suck at marketing your players. So let them market it themselves, because you do a shit job at it. I mean, it's just plain simple. Period. I don't 100%
disagree. I don't care about
any of this.
My opinion for Bauer has nothing to do with it. You can't give out free corporate sponsorship like that.
It's his shit.
It doesn't matter. You can't have Nike pay millions of dollars to have their logo on stuff and then Bauer go, okay, yeah, but they pay. Bauer doesn't pay MLB for that sponsorship time. If Bauer wanted to pay MLB, you could do that, but no, not even MLB. I hope he
continues to break the rules, because
NBA doesn't allow it. We saw what's his name get in trouble for it. I hope he doesn't, because it's stupid as shit. No other player does it, and there's a reason for it. You're not allowed to.
Good for them. They can follow the rules all they want to. Break the rules. Fuck this. This is stupid.
No, I think no. I can't agree with that take. You're literally breaking a rule set by any employer.
I don't care.
Any employer set that rule. You can't do it. That's any employer.
I would continue to break the rules, because this is dumb. This is just dumb.
Well, he won't get away with it, because it's not just. I'm
not saying he will. I'm not saying he will, but he should continue to keep doing it.
I mean, whatever. I think you're 100% off base. You can't give out free sponsorship. I think as a company, no, you are. You cannot give free sponsorship money. You are.
Not at all.
Look at anybody who knows anything about the rules.
I don't care about anybody else.
Well, yeah, but
if you have something, then market it.
Okay.
Period.
We're not going anywhere with this. Life doesn't work that way. You don't get free sponsorships on TV. Otherwise, shit, I'd be sending free Dodger Yard stuff to players all the time. There's a reason why it doesn't happen. There's a reason why no other
if they wear it, then by all means.
But they can't, because it's
probably just throw it away.
Rules. Yeah, but you can't do that. We can't have players be breaking rules that companies spend millions of dollars to have their logos on, because that would be
it will be kiss
that would
my
not
ass.
be good for the sport
ride with
at
the
all.
players. If they have something they want to market, then market it.
Yeah, market it. Just not during MLB TV time when they're paying millions of dollars for that stuff. You can't do that. That's what's wrong. That's what I think people are
Market
missing.
it when you feel like it.
Yeah, no, life doesn't work that way. So
I
on to
don't
the
care how
next
life
thing.
works.
MLB Pipeline drops their top 30 prospects. Dodgers top 5 came out with Kyber Ruiz, Josiah Gray, Michael Busch, Cody Hosey, and Bobby Miller. You guys can check out the top 30. I'm not going to go over every single one because there's a lot of them. I was surprised to see.
It's who you think it's going to be, guys.
I was surprised Ruiz was number one, because basically everywhere else has Gray at number one, and Ruiz is kind of. It depends, play,
but he's either 2 or he's somewhere between 1 and 5.
Yeah, I will say Michael Busch kind of threw me off a little bit. I wasn't expecting that, but again, I'm not a big prospect person. Bobby Miller I thought was cool, already shot himself up there to number 5, but I also guess the Dodgers have promoted so many prospects in the last week or so. Or not the last week, sorry, the last season or two. So their farm has kind of fallen. It's the first time since MLB Pipeline has done ratings that the Dodgers aren't in the top 10, which I don't really care. I'm not worried. They still have an insane amount of talent anyways. So
and once some of these players actually get, because it's been weird. So once like the newer players actually get development, they'll shoot back up in the top 10, believe me.
Yeah. Once, especially,
So this was the only one that had Ruiz in front of Gray, which I mean I don't agree, but again it really doesn't matter all that much. Busch made sense because at all the rankings he's pretty much in the top 5. Hosey is usually at the bottom end of the top 10, so it was a little surprising to see him so high. Bobby Miller usually makes his way somewhere in the middle, so that wasn't surprising at all. The top 30 are fine. I would just rearrange a few things. But also McKinstry makes an appearance at 15, Noisy at 17, and Peters is at 21. Also, speaking of Noisy, he's 4th on the Dodgers in hits this spring training. He's looked better at the plate recently. And I expect we will see him sometime this year. I think he could be a righty bat off the bench who can spot start as well. So like you mentioned earlier, the DJ Peters role, he doesn't have that power, obviously, but I think he would probably fill that role better than Peters does. He might
even be a good taxi squad option, though, on there, too.
I think he'll 100% be there.
I had no idea he was 3rd, 4th, whatever you said.
4th,
so he's clearly doing this kind
Seeger,
of quietly.
Lux, McKinstry, Noisy.
Okay. Yeah, he always comes in later in the game, so I guess that's maybe why. But yeah, he's so far he's having a nice spring. He's made some really good plays at third base too. He's
got a strong arm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he might need to let up just a little bit. He doesn't need to show all of that, because then like his throws end up in the dirt and getting behind the first baseman. Just make it nice and easy.
Yeah, we had heard good things about him when we got him. He was basically just blocked because the A's have one of the best third basemen in baseball. Yeah. So good to see Noisy out there doing his thing. It's really good to see all these guys going out there, especially I love seeing when we actually get to watch these top prospects play. Big fan of Josiah Gray. Cody Hosey had that bomb. Bobby Miller was fun to watch. So yeah, they just give them let AAA season start.
Busch, like he's 2 for 10, but he's made really good contact for majority of that. He also has a home run. And you can just tell his plate disciplines are really good. I don't like that he swings 3-0, but at the same time, 3-0, they're probably giving you something over the middle. So by all means, have a blast.
Yeah. I by the end of 2021, I would not be surprised to see the Dodgers back up in the top 10 farm kind of rankings, the way their development works. So
also, since a lot of scouts are high on Busch and they're saying that if he could play defense, he'd probably be the opening day left fielder or whatever. I'm very curious if he has like another good showing at summer camp, and then also at or the alternate site, and then also when the season actually starts, if he still has good showings and he's likely to, or he could make the team next year. I do wonder, if Muncy continues to struggle, does he play first or does he move to the outfield? So there are quite a few questions I have about Busch and where he's going to play.
Yeah, Muncy's struggles are something else right now, and we don't really need to get into it because everybody can see it. But it's looking a lot like 2020. And
I mean, like you mentioned over text, he's still walking, which is great. At the same time, he's supposed to be a power bat. He had 35 home runs the prior 2 years. So kind of need that from you.
Yeah, that would be great. I don't think this is going to be like 2020 again, where they just stick Muncy in there every single day and hope he figures it out. He had that finger issue after he got hit by on his left ring finger last year. So
and then
maybe
the prior
that's why
year he hurt his wrist the prior year.
Yeah.
2019, he missed like a month. Yeah.
Maybe that's why they gave him so much time in 2010 to recover. They seem to be putting him in there almost every single game. So they want him to figure it out.
Well,
so
to be fair, he kind of needs this just to
Yeah.
figure it out, because like what he's 2 for, I don't know, 20
something like
It's
that.
not great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad he still has the eye. Now we just need him to swing at pitchers and make some solid contact. So hopefully that will come. On to the last thing. I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly because none of it really even affects MLB. I think some of them are interesting. But there's going to be a lot of experimental rule changes coming to minor leagues this year. So basically, MLB says these rules have been designed to increase action on the base paths, create more balls and plays, improve the pace and length of games, and reduce player injuries. There will be one new rule change at each level in the minors to test these new rules. So the first one, size of the bases in AAA, will be increased from 15 square inches to 18 square inches to reduce player injuries and collisions. They said the main reason for this is so that way there are less collisions at first base. The competition committee also expects the larger bases to have a modest impact on the success rate of stolen base attempts, as well as reaching base on ground balls and bunts. As we always say, baseball is a game of inches. So they're getting a few extra when it comes to those leadoffs and maybe potentially stealing bases or beating out a throw. I don't know how much of an impact that will have. I am interested by it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We've seen guys get ran over at first base so I don't have a problem with it. I just hope they don't go the route of like having 2 bases like
they do that in like college softball, where they have like a completely different blue base that you can run on.
I don't think they do it in college anymore. I've only seen it in kids softball now.
Okay.
This is super random, but I just saw a Twitter notification. LeBron James just became a part owner in the Boston Red Sox. So that's super random, but like he's a Lakers, so LA, I guess, but interesting. Anyways, AA changes will focus.
He can't own the Dodgers, so
yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Hey, good for him. AA changes will focus on defensive shifts. Defenses must have a minimum of 4 players on the infield, so they have to have their feet on the grass. Depending on how the changes go, MLB may require 2 infielders on each side of second base for the second half of the season. So this one's a little bit different. It's kind of going down the line of eliminating the shift. Exactly. Some players,
you're rewarding bad players for not being able to hit.
Yeah.
Now we're just playing over the line.
Yeah, now they just want it's the whole put the ball in play more thing that they're going for. So I don't know. Turner, I listened to Justin Turner's opinion on some of this stuff on him and his wife's podcast. Well, her podcast, I should say. He doesn't seem to be a big fan of it, especially the whole I have to keep my feet on the dirt. He's kind of like, you know what? If people are going to shift, then learn to bunt, like learn to go the other way. That was kind of his thing about it.
Thank you. Like when Doris had said he doesn't like the shift, but hey, guys, just how about you learn to hit like Derek Jeter and go the opposite way? It's not. I mean, I know it's difficult. I get it, but they did something so you wouldn't be able to get hits. Adjust to it. It's been years now.
Yeah. So there's a lot. These new single A rules are where they get a little weird. High A will feature a new step-off rule. So this is to kind of help with balks, since nobody actually seems to know what those are. And when they happen in games, you're always having people questioning what actually happened. The new step-off rule in which pitchers must disengage the rubber before throwing to any base. If they don't, it will be ruled a balk. MLB's implementation of the same rule during the second half of the Atlantic League season in 2019 resulted in more stolen base attempts and more successful stolen bases. So maybe we'll get some more stolen bases back in baseball, which I think is always fun. I just think more rules is more to learn, and that's kind of not what I'm a fan of. I
also don't think that pickoffs are why guys don't steal. But if you eliminate them, then they are going to steal because there's no lefty moves or jump turns, so it's easier. But it's not why nobody's stealing.
Yeah, well, the low A is even a little bit more intense. Pitchers will be limited to 2 step-offs or pickoffs per plate appearance while a runner is on base. If a pitcher attempts a third step-off in the same plate appearance and the runner safely returns to the occupied base, it will be a balk. MLB will consider reducing step-offs or pickoffs to 1 per plate appearance when a runner is on base, depending on the results of the experimental rule change. So this is just a lot
So they
to
want to
keep
go
up
back to
with.
having people steal 60+ bases a year.
It sounds that way. Like I said, the rules are apparently just trying to have more balls in play, more action, which I like it. I'm all for it. It's just a lot to keep up with. I'm glad they're doing it all in different leagues so they can kind of actually see the true change of just that one change and not like throwing them all in low A and going, okay, do them all.
So wait, why do you guys think there's not that many stolen bases anymore?
I don't know.
I think a lot of it has to do with analytics, and I sort of agree with it. It's like you don't necessarily need
why
that
risk
extra
that out?
base. Yeah, why risk the out? A runner on first is more valuable than possibly risking him getting out just to get him 90 feet forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think analytics is a big reason of it more than anything. It's just, it's the thing, like Mookie Betts is fast as hell. He could steal second base, but when you have a guy coming up like Seager, do you want to potentially steal? Like if Seager hits a double,
Well, if
Mookie's
they're good at it.
Yeah, of course. But we've seen
Yeah.
that guys just haven't been as good as it over the
Yeah.
years. So, but I mean, I'm all for it. I think stolen bases are fun. A lot of these catchers do not have arms because guys rarely steal. Like Smith and Barnes do not have great arms. They don't throw a lot of guys out. So that's not necessarily ideal for the Dodgers. Dodgers do have some speed on their team though. So we saw Mookie do it a ton in the World Series. So I think it's fun. I'm all for it. The low A Southeast games are where it's been tested a little bit, but MLB will also expand testing of the automatic ball strike system to assist home plate umpires with calling balls and strikes and ensure a consistent strike zone. In low
so this
A,
is not to get rid of them. It's just to help.
I don't know. I don't think they know. I think this is to start with help, and then if it works without them, they'll do it. But I don't know if they can go all out on there yet.
Yeah, basically the home plate umpire is not going to call balls and strikes now. They'll be there just
they'll be told
to
like
basically
a
announce what. Yeah, they'll call
what
a strike, but and then they can call outs at the plate. But yeah, they don't necessarily need to be there.
Are they wearing an earpiece so they know what's going on?
Yeah, or some type of buzzer, like
Okay.
buzzer or something like that. Yeah.
Well, back to the Astros.
Buzzers, all right. Awesome. In low A West games, on-field timers will be implemented to enforce time limits between delivery of pitches, any breaks, and pitching changes. I don't really care about that. I'm kind of fine with it.
But how do you feel about the automated strike zone? Do you think it's necessary?
I don't know what I want to do. I have a hard time with it because here's my thing. I think calls need to be better. At the same time, these pitchers have gotten so good that it's harder to keep up with making the correct call all the time because the way the pitches break and move and the speed. But at the same time, it's just part of the game. Like having an umpire back there, the mistakes, if you bring in an automatic strike zone, you're no longer getting the benefit of the doubt of those Clayton Kershaw painted pitches on the corner. If 50% or whatever percentage they try to make it, if 50% of the ball is not in that zone, you're no longer getting those borderline calls. And that completely changes the game. How do you adjust a robotic? Like my guess is, do they have to take measurements of every single player in baseball and then set up the robot so that way the strike zone adjusts per at batter? Because the strike zone's not the same per at batter. Like it's got to change. So I think there's a lot of it that I'm not necessarily against it. I will say Turner, based on his podcast, he is against it. He does not want it. Trevor Bauer, he spoke to Dodgers media. He is all for it. He wants it. I can see both sides of it. I don't know where I stand just yet. It's a very weird kind of.
I think I go back and forth. So like umpires, there are a lot of umpires who are bad. Like Angel Hernandez is just bad. But like where I get iffy sometimes is like you mentioned, like a close pitch that's technically a ball will get called strikes if the catcher does his job and the umpire as a discretion is like, oh yeah, that's a strike. Now, if it's close like that and the automated strike zone is now saying it's a ball, I think that's going to hurt the pitchers a little bit. So there's a human element that's good and bad. So honestly, I could go either way with a strong argument, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's where I think we're at. I think it's hard to go either way. If you commit fully to yes, I'm for it, you can easily find bad about it. if you commit to, I want umpires behind the plate, you have arguments as to why that's not a good idea either. I think it's truly one of those things that has to be tested and continuously looked at. Turner said, I think they tried it in the Atlantic League before one year, like 2019 or something like that.
They
and
also
Turner
tried
said,
it in the fall league when was it last time they did the fall league a couple years ago?
Probably
They had automatic
2019.
strike zones, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Turner said that from what he read, it went horribly. I don't know what that means, but that's the kind of stuff that, like, you cannot bring this into baseball, at least the major league level, until you have it 100% down to a science, because these umpires have been doing it for over a century. Like, this has been going on forever in baseball. And if you're going to change something like that, you really, really have to have it down. Otherwise, you're going to be pissing a lot of people off. And
But
that's just
the one thing is there are some umpires who make it all about them. Like there's this ump show. So that.
Oh, yeah. That is what's problematic. But I also think at a time and point, that's where the umpire, like having a union, great, whatever. But I think that's where the issue of having a union and them being untouchable is an issue. That's the kind of stuff like that shouldn't be happening. And that should be where MLB is stepping in and able to do something. But I think they're kind of in a weird situation because of the umpires union. They can only do so much. So that's where it becomes one of those things that it's like, do you want to take away the human element? But if you do, there might be negatives to it. There might be positives to it.
If they do take it away and there's a pitch that the batters disagree with, are they going to argue with a robot?
I just want to see someone.
I mean,
I want to see a
David
David Ortiz.
Kicked out in the fall league because he argued, because it was one of the issues
that actually
the argument. Well, it's a breaking ball that ends in the dirt, but technically crosses at the knees. So technically a strike, like you'll see on a K zone, but obviously not a strike. And but it got called strike 3, so he got kicked out.
Yeah, see, that can't be happening.
But where do you guys see? Is it where it lands or where it crosses?
It's where it crosses the plate. That is the technical rule. Where it crosses the plate, and that to me has always been my biggest issue. Like you see all these pitches cross the plate as strikes, but they just end somewhere completely different.
Yeah, that is what I mean by probably can't happen. Otherwise, you're gonna have a big Poppy moment where he smashed the phone in the dugout that one time. You're gonna see that happen into robots, like or whatever it is. That's the thing, is I don't know. I don't know how far you go down. Sometimes I like the spats between the umpires and the players. I just like.
I mean, I like it too, but just don't kick them out for it.
Yeah, there has to be a line drawn. I think as long as there is nothing disrespectful.
I have heard from somebody I know who's been in dugouts that when they say, "Oh, you must have said something," it's been 4 or 5 innings of saying something that got a guy kicked out.
Okay.
So, okay. See, that I can understand.
That makes sense. Yeah. So
that's
fine.
Yeah. For me, not one thing normally.
For me, my biggest thing is as long as there's no threats and it's not disrespectful and it's kept about the game of baseball, then just let the player walk away and be pissed off. If he's not making any type of threat or something about you or calling you names, like if he's just like, that's a bullshit call, what the fuck, like let him walk away and be pissed off. You don't need to kick him out for that.
Or even what the fuck are you looking at? I can deal with that too.
My biggest thing is when they're walking away and they get thrown out. I'm just like, what is happening? Like, you're the umpire. Don't antagonize it. Let them talk their shit. If you have an issue with it,
even if they're muttering, walking away, just let them go.
Like, if you have an issue with it, talk to the manager. We've seen how many times that Roberts goes out in between half innings and has a discussion with an umpire and goes, hey, what's going on here? Have that discussion. Tell Dave Roberts, say, hey, he's chirping off a little bit too much when he walks around the plate. I need him to like get it together or I'm throwing him out next time it happens. That I can 100% respect. I don't know if it goes on because we don't know all of that with fans, but it drives me insane when a player's walking away and gets tossed from a game. Because at the end of the day, like, their job's on the line.
I've seen players just make faces and then umpires like, all right, you're out. And I'm just like,
like at the end of the day, they're in a union, but they're not protected from being sent down because they're in a union. The umpires, they're a little bit more protected. These players, you screw up a bad call, it could have them sent back down to the minor league. So I get where the frustration comes from. I get where I get both sides of it. It's a complicated thing. And I just hope that if MLB goes this direction, I truly hope that there's enough testing behind it that they feel 100% confident.
I mean, I'm sure there would, because I figured that the one in 2019 at the Fall League was just like a prototype, kind of like, let's see how this goes first.
Yeah.
Before making adjustments. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure it'd have to go through the players union, everything.
Yeah. I think the solution is just get better umpires. And there's good umpires out there. It's just that there's some really bad ones that make all of them look bad.
Yeah, and 2020 was even rougher because you had a bunch of them opting out because of COVID. So you had a bunch of AAA or AA umpires having to come up.
A lot of those young guys are better because they have come up with technology showing them their strike zone. So
yeah, well, in the younger, when you're younger and haven't been doing it your whole life, you're a little bit more willing to accept that like some things need to be better.
Because the older players, like other older umpires like Hernandez and Joe West, are kind of just stuck in their ways. It is.
Yeah, I don't think they care most of the time. I don't think they care. But other than that, we've gone on a little bit longer than planned today, so we will end that there. I had nothing else to go over today. I don't know.
No, I think that was it.
Cool. So as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, follow. Please leave a rating and review if you have not. It does mean the world to us seeing that stuff, at least the positive ones. The negative ones suck, but if you want to leave a positive one, we're all for that. As always, you can follow us.
I will take constructive criticism though. As long as you have a point to it, I'm fine with that. But if you're just mouthing off,
throw in like 4 or 5 stars of constructive criticism, though. I will say that. But with that said, you guys can find us on social at Dodgy Yard, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. You can find me at Randy_Radcliffe on Twitter and IG.
You can go to allmylinks.com/Konu, KONU, and find my social medias on there.
And that is it for this week. So thank you guys for listening. We hope you have a good rest of your night, morning, afternoon, day, whatever. We've got Kershaw on the mound in about 40 minutes. So we are going to go get ready to watch that. We will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
See you later, guys.